It's the first 4 minutes of this.
A very, very dark time, because it looks like the president has finally violated a... This is a very, very dark time, because it looks like the president has finally violated a direct court order. The Trump administration is claiming that they can deport anyone, including presumably American citizens, without due process, simply by calling them a member of a gang which has been labeled as a terrorist organization, claiming authority from a law from the late 1700s. On March 16, 2025, the Trump administration deported, or more accurately, renditioned over 200 alleged members of the Venezuelan gang Tren de Aragua to El Salvador, despite a federal judge's order to halt such actions. Hundreds of Venezuelans, some seeking asylum, were renditioned away from the country with no due process, no evidence, no hearings, and no judges. And in fact, some were scheduled to have hearings, but were loaded on a plane and deported to prevent that hearing from taking place. Credible reports are already coming in that several of the Venezuelans were not members of any gang and were labeled as such simply because they had one or more tattoos. You'll note, of course, that the deported Venezuelans were not from
I would be careful on that phrasing. When he says there are several reports of this, I think the reports are just reporting what's being stated on the affidavit, which could be lies. Now, I don't know if we have good reason to think they're lying, which is
El Salvador, yet the deported individuals appear to have been transferred to El Salvador's terrorism detention center, which may be acting like an extrajudicial private prison under a $6 million agreement between the United States and El Salvadoran President Nayib Bukele, who calls himself the world's coolest dictator. The administration invoked the 1798 Alien Enemies Act to expedite the deportations, claiming the law is necessary to address the gang's involvement in crimes like kidnapping, extortion, and contract killings. But the deportations proceeded even after federal judge James Boasberg directed the government to turn around any planes carrying individuals being removed pursuant to Trump's Alien Enemies proclamation. It appears the Trump administration did not turn the planes around, and one or more planes even took off after the order was given. It appears that the Trump administration is defying...
People are saying families have come out and made statements now. Okay, anyway.
The court's order to deport people to a foreign gulag. Trump's actions are an unprecedented challenge to the Constitution and the rule of law. I think this is going to be a historical black mark on this country, where people's clear civil rights were infringed and basically eviscerated for no real benefit. Now, during Trump's appearance at the Department of Justice last week, he announced that he was about to deport people he believed were associates of Venezuelan gangs. Now, some of that could be true, but we don't know because these individuals have not received due process.
It's the Venezuelan gang, the toughest gang, they say, in the world, and the Mexican drug cartels as foreign terrorist organizations. That's a big deal. Nobody wanted to do that. And by the way, we've caught hundreds of them, the Venezuelan gang, which is as bad as it gets, and you'll be reading a lot of stories tomorrow about what we've done with them, and you'll be very impressed, and you'll feel a lot safer too, because they are a vicious group.
On March 15, 2025, President Trump issued a proclamation invoking the Alien Enemies Act of 1798 to expedite the deportations of Venezuelan nationals associated with the criminal organization Tren de Aragua. This group was designated by the Trump administration as a foreign terrorist organization in January 2025. And has been implicated in various criminal activities, including murder, kidnapping, extortion, and trafficking of humans, drugs, and weapons. Now, normally those allegations would be adjudicated in the normal criminal and immigration process. But the proclamation categorized Venezuelan nationals over the age of 14 who are neither U.S. citizens nor lawful permanent residents as, quote, alien enemies, thereby authorizing their expedited removal from the United States. Expedited removal purports to allow immigration officials to quickly deport people without a formal hearing before an immigration judge. Trump's proclamation does not define what it means to be a member of Tren de Aragua, and reports indicate that the administration began deportations even before Trump had issued the proclamation. Now, the Alien Enemies Act is one of the controversial Alien and Sedition Acts that Congress passed in 1798 under President John Adams. These 4 laws suppressed political opposition and tightened the president's control over immigration. In response to the growing tensions with France, Adams sought more control over newspapers, immigration, and naturalization.
Sorry, just kidding. We're not reading tonight. I didn't charge my iPad. We'll read tomorrow, okay? Shh.
The laws quickly became tools for the Federalist Party to target its political adversaries, particularly supporters of Thomas Jefferson and the Democratic Republicans. The Alien Enemies Act purported to allow the president to detain or deport immigrants from nations with which the U.S. was at war. During World War II, President Franklin D. Roosevelt invoked the act to justify the internment of enemy aliens, specifically Japanese, German, and Italian nationals residing in the United States. And the act is still on the books today. You can take a look at the text codified at 50 U.S.C. 21. Quote, whenever there is a declared war between the United States and any foreign national or government, or any invasion or predatory incursion is perpetrated, attempted, or threatened against the territory of the United States by any foreign national or government, and the president makes public proclamation of the event, all native citizens, denizens, or subjects of the hostile nation or government, being of the age of 14 years and upward, shall be within the United States, and not actually naturalized, shall be liable to be apprehended, restrained, secured, and removed as alien enemies. Trump's proclamation tracks the statute by stating that the U.S. would deport any member member of Trinidad who is over the age of 14 and does not have a green card. Now, according to the text, the president can only assert these sweeping powers when the United States is in a declared war against a nation or government, or when a foreign national or government is invading or attempting to invade the United States. Until now, the government has only used the statute during 3 actual wars: the War of 1812, World War I, and World War II. Trump's claim that we are at war with Venezuela or a Venezuelan gang is an unprecedented power grab by a president in peacetime. So on March 15th, 5 Venezuelan nationals detained in U.S. immigration facilities challenged their imminent deportation. They filed a lawsuit before Trump had issued his proclamation. They argued that the use of the act to justify their removal was unconstitutional because historically the statute has only been applied during formal wars, not in response to non-state actors like criminal organizations. The plaintiffs also argued that while the gang may pose security concerns, it's not an entity comparable to a hostile foreign power, and therefore does not meet the legal criteria necessary to trigger the Alien Enemies Act provisions.
Obviously.
The plaintiffs emphasized that Trump's proclamation allows for the immediate deportation of Venezuelan nationals without access to legal review or due process protections. And they claim that this violates the Fifth Amendment's due process clause, which guarantees that non-citizens have the right to challenge government actions affecting their liberty. Based on what I'm seeing, I worry that this case was chosen on purpose as a test case for defying a court order. News reporting is credulously stating that the deportees are Venezuelan gang members, and while that may be true for some of them, no evidence has been presented of that fact, and based on other reporting, it's definitely not true for some of them. Additionally, the plaintiffs argue that the government has engaged in tactical relocations to expedite their removals. They assert that detained Venezuelan immigrants were transferred to Texas so they could be swiftly deported before they had the chance to file legal challenges. On what basis can you send Venezuelan immigrants to El Salvador? I have no idea. I've not seen any credible legal defense for renditioning hundreds of Venezuelans to a for-profit prison in El Salvador where they're going to do hard labor. My hunch is that there's probably a reason why this has never been done before. These, again, Venezuelans were effectively sold into slave labor in a country they might not have ever been to before. And if the government has proof that the individuals were members of Trinidad, then why not go through the traditional removal process, affording them the opportunity to present evidence to the contrary?
True.
And in fact, some of the people who were deported.
And I don't even think this would be, this is why I think he's so stupid. I don't even think this would look bad. If anything, they could drum it up more, and I feel like it would look good for them. Like, look at all these gang members we caught, we've arrested them all, and now we're going to be trying them in prison, and, you know, why not just do that? It's so mind-boggling the way that he decides to go about everything. I don't know.
Had hearings already scheduled where the government could have made their case. Now, we recently covered the wide discretion that immigration courts have in the context of Mahmoud Khalil, and it's likely that many of these deportees would have been deported through the regular process.
Yeah.
But the Trump executive order circumvents even the modicum of due process that would have been afforded under regular immigration procedures. This should concern everyone, because since there is no due process, anyone, including American citizens, could simply be labeled an undocumented gang member, loaded on a plane, and renditioned to a seemingly random foreign country's prison. And at least one of the deportees claims, and you can take it with whatever grain of salt that you want, he was seeking asylum in the US because he was LGBT and was specifically fleeing gang violence in Venezuela. It now appears that a large number of the deportees had no criminal background, but the Trump administration says that these people are terrorists, and worse, the government says that the lack of evidence about their activities actually proves how much they are terrorists. Quote, well, it is true that many of the TDA members removed under the AEA do not have criminal records in the United States. That is because they have only been in the United States for a short period of time. The lack of criminal record does not indicate they pose a limited threat. In fact, based upon their association with TDA, the lack of specific information about each individual actually highlights the risk they pose. It demonstrates that they are terrorists with regard to whom we lack a complete profile. So for all these reasons, the plaintiffs asked a federal court in Washington, D.C. for a temporary restraining order to halt these removals while they were in the process of happening. Now, if you're going to defy a federal court judge, you'll want a good lawyer. But if you want a great lawyer, my law firm, the Eagle Team, can help. If you've got in a car crash, suffered a data breach, especially if you got one of those data breach letters saying your information might have been leaked, or dealing with a workers' comp or social security issue, we can represent you or help find you the right attorney. And by the way, we don't get paid unless you do, so there's nothing up front. So just click on the link in the description or call the phone number on screen for a free consultation with my team. Because you understand the legal team, you need the Eagle Team. Now, the plaintiffs filed their lawsuit on Saturday morning, which is already unusual. And later that same day, the chief judge for the District of D.C., James Boasberg, granted a narrow TRO, temporarily preventing the removal of the individual plaintiffs for 14 days. The judge determined that immediate deportations would irreparably harm the plaintiffs by depriving them of due process rights before they had an opportunity to challenge the government's actions. And the judge's order happened before Trump had officially issued his proclamation and before the government had a chance to respond. But the judge felt he had to act because if the deportations went through, the plaintiffs would suffer irreparable harm. They would be jailed in a foreign country. Now, the initial TRO was limited in scope, applying only to the 5 named plaintiffs in the case. The judge ordered the government to halt their removal while the court reviewed the legal merits of the administration's use of the Alien Enemies Act. But shortly before the 5 p.m. on a weekend emergency hearing, Trump finally issued the proclamation the plaintiffs had anticipated. Now, the timing of the proclamation raises another legal issue. Was there a secret order authorizing the removal of the detainees before Saturday afternoon? In the week leading up to the deportation, some of the detainees missed deportation hearings because the government had moved them in preparation for these unlawful deportations. And during the hearing, ACLU lawyer Legal Learns asserted that at least 2 planes containing the Venezuelans were already taking off. So the parties took a short break so that the DOJ's main lawyer arguing the case, Deputy Assistant Attorney General Drew Ensign, could consult with his clients. He confirmed that the flights were in the air. Now, all the hearings that we're going to talk about were public in the sense that lawyers could call in, but people were not allowed to record them, so I'm relying on the accounts of the lawyers that actually called in. And according to civil rights lawyer Remy Green, Judge Boasberg agreed with the plaintiffs that the act did not apply, saying, quote, invasion means war. This also means the government, not gangs. The Alien Enemies Act doesn't work. Judge Boasberg also warned the government to follow his order, quote, DOJ, you shall inform your client of this immediately. Any plane containing these folks cannot take off. If it's in the air, it must turn around. And plaintiffs who had access to the official transcript of the hearing later confirmed the exchange. And with respect to the original 5 plaintiffs, the judge said, quote, I would assume that means that they, the 5 named plaintiffs, are either not on the planes or that they will not be removed from the planes and will be brought back once the planes land in El Salvador. Is that fair? Now, these exchanges are really important because they show that the judge was clear about the parameters of his order. When the court winds up deciding whether to hold the government in civil contempt of court, which we'll talk about later, the plaintiffs will have to prove that the orders were clear and that there wasn't any room for interpretation. After the hearing, Judge Boasberg explained the TRO to cover all Venezuelan nationals at risk of removal. Additionally, he certified the case as a class action, broadening the protections beyond just the individual plaintiffs. The government immediately appealed the TRO, and as we've discussed, TROs are generally not appealable, but, YOLO. But that wasn't all the government did, because despite the court's order, Trump continued the deportations. The government officials argued that individuals who were already in transit when the TRO was issued, such as those on deportation flights over international waters, were outside the jurisdiction of the court. Plaintiffs filed a response explaining, quote, whether or not the planes had cleared U.S. territory, the U.S. retained custody at least until the planes landed and the individuals were turned over to foreign governments. Again, just so we're clear, if planes have already landed in...
Oh, so the court already had made this statement. Yeah. The court could not have been clearer that it was concerned with losing jurisdiction and authority to order the individual's return. Oh, yeah, okay. Oh, nice. Okay. Ooh, we're on the same page. Yeah. Because once the citizens are lost to another country, or not citizens, once the people are lost to another country, there might be no way to get them back. So now if the government loses its case, so let's say the government loses its case and they're like, okay, well, we got to get our people back. El Salvador can just say no. And it's like, okay, well, we tried, and then you're done. So there's no fucking point now.
Discharge their occupants. Aside from the 5 plaintiffs I enjoined earlier, in this order, I don't have jurisdiction to require their return. Plaintiffs filed a response explaining, quote, whether or not the planes had cleared U.S. territory, the U.S. retained custody at least until the planes landed and the individuals were turned over to foreign governments. And the court could not have been clear that it was concerned with losing jurisdiction and authority to order the individuals returned if they were handed over to foreign governments, not with whether the planes had cleared U.S. territory or had even landed in another country.
Yeah.
Now, there's generally no I'm traveling exception to court orders. You're either within the court's jurisdiction or you aren't. And
Wow, Kenneth. Thanks for the 5 good memberships.
I don't want to get off on a tangent about courts of law versus courts of equity, but here the court was exercising its equity powers, but about 500 years of jurisprudence between America and England show that the court's equity jurisdiction extends beyond the territorial borders of the country, and so long as the defendant is within the court's jurisdiction, you can command it to do things that are outside of that particular country. The judge set hearing for 2 days later at 5 p.m. on Monday, and he asked the administration to prepare answers to questions such as whether any flight with individuals subject to the proclamation took off after either the court's written or oral orders were issued. Now, 1 hour before the 5 p.m. hearing, the DOJ filed a notice telling the court that it should cancel the hearing, quote, because there has been no violation of the court's orders and because the government is not prepared to disclose any further national security or operational security details. This is brazenly inappropriate, and the judge immediately rejected the administration's attempt to get out of the hearing. And in the DOJ's filing, it argued that the court's orders usurped the president's authority as commander-in-chief. It characterized the judge's injunction as oral and therefore unenforceable. That's not how things work, but they argued, quote, contrary to plaintiff's assertion, the oral directive is not enforceable as an injunction. The principle holds especially true when the court does issue a written order, but phrases it more narrowly. In that event, the written order controls. Now, you might be wondering, how is the written order narrower than the oral one? Well, it used the word removing, which the government says does not apply to people who were past tense removed. The Trump administration said, quote, as to any flights that were already outside the U.S. territory and airspace, anyone aboard had already been removed within the meaning.
Like, these are Reddit arguments. These are Reddit tier arguments. All of these, the government's filings on this, on all of these cases have been absolutely fucking insane. It's so crazy to go from this to the listening to the solicitor argue about the TikTok ban or whatever, which I think was still under Biden, right? The arguments that the government was making then compared to the filings that you see now, it's actually fucking insane. It's so stupid.
Of the Alien Enemies Act and the court's order, and therefore were not covered by the order. Now, this is an absurd claim in every respect, and it very well may lead to sanctions. Oral orders carry the same legal weight as written ones, and in this case, the judge issued a written order reinforcing his oral directive. So Trump's argument boils down to this. The government ignored the oral order and deported the detainees, and now the written order doesn't apply because the deportations are
already gone.
It's a circular defense with Trump justifying defiance of one order as a reason to disregard the next, and is exactly the kind of BS that a court in equity is likely to take to task. Now, before the hearing, the DOJ also sent a bizarre letter to the D.C. Circuit, the Court of Appeals, demanding that the case be reassigned because Judge Boasberg is biased. Quote, the government cannot and will not be forced to answer sensitive questions of national security and foreign relations in a rushed posture without ordering briefing and showing that these questions are somehow material to a live issue. He's a Yale law grad who started as prosecutor in the U.S. Attorney's Office for D.C. As a judge, he served on the Alien Terrorist Removal Court and the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court, so he's not someone who's likely to take a claim of national security lightly. And he also once ruled against plaintiffs who wanted Trump's tax return, so it's not as if he has some kind of axe to grind against Trump in particular. The government is claiming they cannot provide details on national security grounds, but the claims of national security are at odds with the public displays that they have made. The White House posted propaganda videos of the immigrants landing in El Salvador, and the flights were public and many people tracked them in real time. El Salvador's Bukele posted a story about the TRO and said, quote,
wait, what?
Details on ruled against plaintiffs who wanted Trump's tax return, so it's not as if Court law grad who started as prosecutor in the U.S. Attorney's Office for D.C. As a judge, he served on the Alien Terrorist Removal Court and the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court, so he's not someone who's likely to take a claim of national security lightly. And he also once ruled against plaintiffs who wanted Trump's tax return, so it's not as if he has some kind of axe to grind against Trump in particular. The government is claiming they cannot provide details on national security grounds, but the claims of national security are at odds with the public displays that they have made. The White House posted propaganda videos of the immigrants landing in El Salvador, and the flights were public and many people tracked them in real time. El Salvador's Bukele posted a story about the TRO and said, quote, oopsie, too late, laughing emoji. And Secretary of State Marco Rubio retweeted that. But it's very clear that the government was trying his patience. At the Monday, March 17th hearing, the government refused to answer the judge's 4 questions that he asked. First of all, the lawyers would not confirm whether the original 5 plaintiffs were still in the U.S. or whether they had been deported. The lawyers, who did not include the original arguing attorney, Mr. Ensign, said that they were only authorized to say that the flights which took place after the court's first order were not subject to the court's ruling, which could mean that none of the 5 plaintiffs were on those flights, but we don't know for sure. Judge Boasberg asked the government why they couldn't share the information in camera, meaning in private, and the lawyers said they cannot share why they cannot share. That's ridiculous. That's not how that works. Judge Boasberg explained that he reviews classified information all the time. According to immigration lawyer Aaron Reisland-Melnick, who listened to the hearing, Boasberg cited case law saying that the government is required to actually provide a clear reason before refusing to provide him classified or national security information. He asked if the DOJ can provide in writing tomorrow by noon what their position is communicating the
like, it's all just like stall and delay tactics, and it's all bullshit. Like, what's the new deadline right now? Or what did he say? I'm real mad, and we're going to see what I say tomorrow. Like, what did we end today? Because there were hearings today on this. This video is 1 day old. So what was the outcome today of the hearing?
info to him. And that's definitely correct. If you refuse to give a federal judge that information, you have to explain why. Boasberg only mentioned contempt of court one time, but the point of the hearing was to gather facts to determine whether he should find the government in contempt. The DOJ lawyers argue that the judge's short written order, issued 40 minutes after the initial oral hearing, superseded anything that he said orally. And the judges claim they acted in good faith in only viewing the written order as binding. According to Melnick, the lawyers argue that because the judge's written order didn't include every word he spoke in court, they believe they could simply ignore what he said. The judge then apparently said, quote, "So when I said, Mr. Ensign, you should inform your clients immediately, however that's accomplished, whether it means turning around to plane, etc., you need to make sure this is complied with immediately. You're telling me your first argument is that when I said those things, because it wasn't in a minute order, you didn't have to comply. That's your argument? You're telling me that very clear point. You're saying that you felt that you could disregard it because it wasn't in the written order. That's your first argument."
I hate that federal court is not recorded. Fuck me, dude. There are so many epic fucking cases that are being argued here that are happening here that we can't hear. Like, imagine if oral arguments in the Supreme Court. Well, those aren't even as exciting, though, the oral arguments before the Supreme Court. I can't believe we don't get any of this. Fuck.
The government's lawyer responded, quote, "I'm stating what the position of the United States is." Judge Boasberg, like the rest of us, was incredulous. He said, quote, "You knew in the morning that there would be a hearing at 5 p.m. So any planes you were putting in the air, you knew you had that hearing coming. So you're saying that because any minute order was pithier, that's a heck of a stretch, I think." Now, any federal practitioner knows that oral orders are binding, and if they didn't think they had to comply with it, then why didn't they just speak up during the actual hearing when the judge made the ruling? Now, personally, I would rather commit ritual seppuku than make this particular argument, but the DOJ then pivoted to its next argument, that once the flights were over international waters, the judge lost jurisdiction. But Boasberg said,
like, imagine that statement. We lost jurisdiction. Who has jurisdiction over the flights then? If the plane landed in El Salvador and El Salvador was like, "Oh, we're taking your planes." Like, what does that even fucking mean? What?
the equitable power of the United States courts is not so limited, and it's pretty clear that even if the enjoined acts were outside the territory of the United States, the government couldn't violate them. He asked what argument they had proving that the court's ability to rule in equity, quote, stops at the country's borders. The government's lawyers responded that it was pretty simple. The government physically removed people, so the court no longer had jurisdiction. But that would be an incredible claim, because if Trump can defeat a court's jurisdiction by ignoring a court's order and removing people from the court's jurisdiction,
then you could literally just fly anybody, like, oh, I can't torture this guy inside the United States, but what if I, throw him into a plane and then fly him over the Gulf of America? Do we have jurisdiction over that now because it's the Gulf of America, or does that still count as internet? And then just torture him over the water and then bring him back. Now we're all Gucci? Like,
then there's really no such thing as law. When Judge Boasberg pressed the DOJ for more information, the lawyer said, quote, when the planes are in the sky and there is sensitive national security, that's not a call that can be made by a judge. They made one more argument that the president has inherent authority to move military forces, but of course these were not military flights. Judge Boasberg set a hearing for the next day and demanded that the DOJ provide information related to questions such as how many planes departed the United States at any time on Saturday.
No, when somebody said that's what Guantanamo Bay is, you're wrong. Because even the people in Guantanamo Bay have a right and the ability to challenge why they're being detained. Even in Guantanamo Bay, those people had more rights than these people that were thrown into these planes. It's actually insane.
Carrying people being deported solely on the basis of the proclamation, how many people in the category were on those planes, what foreign countries did those planes land in, what time did the planes leave the US, et cetera, et cetera. Now, many people have pointed out many constitutional infirmities with the Alien Enemies Act. Just off the top of my head, it runs afoul of the Fifth Amendment's right to due process. There is discrimination based on nationality, which is a protected class, and of course it violates the right against indefinite civil detention. Japanese internment was of course a black spot on this country's history, and the Korematsu case, which approved of Japanese internment, was already mostly repealed by Trump versus Hawaii. So one would assume the Supreme Court, including the Supreme Court, would find the Alien Enemies Act to be unconstitutional. But that's not a given, so by its terms, does the Alien Enemies Act even apply to the Venezuelans under these circumstances? Well, first of all, the US is not at war with any other country, so why would the act apply to Venezuelans now? Well, the government has this one weird trick. Nicaragua and the Venezuelan government are one and the same, they claim. Trump's proclamation says Venezuela is, quote, a hybrid criminal state. Evidence irrefutably demonstrates that Nicaragua has invaded the United States and continues to invade, attempt to invade, and threaten to invade the country, perpetrated irregular warfare within the country, and used drug trafficking as a weapon against our citizens. The government argues, quote, given how significantly Nicaragua has become intertwined in the fabric of Venezuela's state structures, it is a de facto arm of the Maduro regime.
Wow.
Now, that seems factually inaccurate, but it also seems legally inaccurate. Number one, only Congress has the power to declare war based on Article 1 of the Constitution, and the plain text of the Alien Enemies Act doesn't seem to support the conclusion that the US is at war. But the government says that the president, as commander-in-chief, is the one who gets to decide when America is officially at war. The Supreme Court has considered the parameters of war in the context of two occasions, both in the aftermath of World War II. In 1948, the Supreme Court heard an appeal from William Ledecky, a German who was classified as an alien enemy and was subject to deportation. By the time the government moved to deport Ledecky, World War II had been over for 8 months. And writing for the majority, Justice Felix Frankfurter argued that despite Germany's defeat, the state of hostilities persisted. Quote, war does not cease with a ceasefire order, and the power to be exercised by the president, such as that conferred by the Act of 1798, is a process which begins when the war is declared, but is not exhausted when the shooting stops. Thus, Frankfurter emphasized that the president had the authority to determine whether individuals who were considered a security risk during the war remained a threat. And Frankfurter stated, quote, it is not for us to question a belief by the president that enemy aliens, who were justifiably deemed fit subjects for internment during active hostilities, do not lose their potency for mischief during the period of confusion and conflict, which is characteristic of a state of war, even when the guns are silent, but the peace of peace has not come. And the court's decision was also grounded in the belief that the Alien Enemy Act precluded judicial review of removal orders. In a dissenting opinion, Justice Hugo Black and 3 other justices pointed out that Ledecky was a legally admitted resident and should be afforded due process rights. Black argued that the Alien Enemies Act only applied when an individual could assist a foreign government, and with the Allied victory, Germany no longer had a government Ledecky could assist. And in the case of United States ex-rel Jagler versus Carusi, the Supreme Court ruled that a German national who had been classified as an enemy alien held in custody following his arrest could not be detained indefinitely. The court decided the war with Germany officially ended in 1951 with the joint resolution to terminate the state of war between the United States and the government of Germany. And Ledecky arguably doesn't stand for the proposition that only the president gets to say when America is at war. As Ledecky and the Jagler cases acknowledge, World War II began and ended with a determination by Congress, not the president. But now Trump has an argument for that as well. The political question doctrine makes the case unreviewable. The political question doctrine is a principle of constitutional law that holds that certain issues are beyond the jurisdiction of the courts because they are best handled by the political branches. And when courts determine that an issue is a political question, they decline to hear the case, reasoning that the Constitution entrusts the matter to elected officials rather than the judiciary. And here the government claims that whether the U.S. is at war or under invasion is a political question that is decided by the president. Trump argues that the TRO undermines Trump's, quote, inherent Article 2 authority to repel such an invasion and conduct foreign affairs.
Just as a quick thing, that's not true. He lied. The political questions doctrine is when a question is too hard and you don't have the balls to actually issue a tough ruling, you kick the can down the road, you say, let's, why don't you guys in Congress figure that one out? Fuck you. Unreal.
And the government
There's probably actually legitimately some cases maybe that they shouldn't hear, but otherwise, fuck the courts on that one.
asserts the, quote, federal courts have consistently held that the determination by the executive of whether there is an invasion is a non-justiciable political question. On the other side of the fence, the Supreme Court's position has long been that judicial review is available to immigrants detained under the act. For example, in United States versus Thomas Williams, where Chief Justice Marshall, sitting as a circuit judge, granted a writ of habeas corpus, releasing a British citizen detained during the War of 1812. And the second part of the statute gives the president power to, quote, establish any other regulations necessary for removal, which suggests that some judicial review is cognizable. And the Ledecky case does not say that the president's power to establish when the U.S. is at war is unlimited. And during World War II, the courts decided hundreds of cases involving the Alien Enemy Act, and the courts provided some meaningful review to the question that triggered the statute. Whether the detainees had connections with countries on which America had declared war. If they did, then the government could decide what to do with them. But if the courts can decide whether a person is connected...
Like, you have to understand what no due process means. No due process doesn't mean that the government can be sloppy, or that sometimes an innocent person, might suffer some consequence, or that, we're going to have to trust when somebody says a thing and they might make mistakes. No due process means that the government could walk into your mom's house and just deport her, and that's it. That, like, without due process, anything can happen. Anything can happen. Anything.
To those countries, then it would seem like they also have the power to decide the other statutory predicate, whether the U.S. is at war or under an invasion from a foreign country or government. Either way, you'd think the detainees would have some modicum of due process rights. But what about the statute's use of the word invasion? Well, Texas challenged Biden's handling of immigration by arguing that illegal migration and drug smuggling constitute invasion under Article 1, Section 10, Clause 3 of the Constitution, which allows states to engage in war if, quote, actually invaded or facing imminent danger. Using this argument, Texas attempted to justify policies like detaining and deporting undocumented immigrants, as well as placing barriers in the Rio Grande, despite federal law preempting state action in immigration enforcement. Arguably, this interpretation was inconsistent with the Constitution's text and original meaning. The founders seemed to intend the term invasion to refer to organized armed attacks, not migration or smuggling. James Madison, in his report of 1800, explicitly defined invasion as an operation of war, and the Constitution's guarantee clause, which ensures federal protection against invasion and domestic violence, further supports this reading. Domestic violence historically referred to
like, it can't just be that invasion is literally, we're going 10 years back to the white nationalists. We're being invaded by immigrants. We're being invaded because there's people coming over. Like, what? Really?
Aliens against state governments, not modern interpersonal violence. And a legal interpretation doctrine called noster ausericus, a word is known by its context, reinforces that invasion should be understood alongside terms like war and domestic violence, which imply force or conflict. If Texas's interpretation were accepted, it could distort constitutional war powers and open the door for states to claim emergency military authority over broad issues unrelated to armed conflict. There's also a fairly robust body of law developed during the Bush administration's war on terror that indicates the courts do not completely defer to the president about when the U.S. is actively at war. The Military Commissions Act of 2006 stripped Guantanamo detainees of the ability to file habeas corpus petitions in U.S. courts, and in 2008, the Supreme Court reaffirmed the constitutional rights of detainees at Guantanamo to challenge their detention in federal court through habeas corpus. The Supreme Court ruled that the MCA provision was unconstitutional because it did not provide an adequate alternative process for detainees to challenge their imprisonment. The ruling established that constitutional protections apply to detainees held by the U.S. government, even in overseas military facilities. That was a 5-4 decision written by now retired Justice Anthony Kennedy, though Justice Roberts wrote a dissenting opinion. And there were many cases during the War on Terror where the lower court scrutinized whether detainees were part of Al-Qaeda. And based on that precedent, the courts should have a role in determining whether someone is a member of Tren de Aragua. And another major difference is that the War on Terror cases involved detainees who had never set foot on U.S. soil, whereas the Venezuelan deportees arguably have more rights since they were living in the United States. Now, the judge asked the government to file a response under seal answering 5 questions, but the Trump administration filed a motion to stay the order, asserting that the government does not need to answer the questions, it can't answer them on such a tight timeline, and the questions jeopardize national security. Now, the administration claims that revealing this information would have a catastrophic impact on U.S. foreign policy, and it is considering invoking the state secrets privilege. Quote, even addressing the questions in an ex parte submission would result in an immediate flood of media inquiries and demands for the information, subjecting the diplomatic relationships at issue to unacceptable uncertainty about how the court will address those demands. And I will remind you that an ex parte in-camera submission is seen only by the court. And frankly, there should be media questions about this case. Now, as for the alleged threat to the relationship between the U.S. and other countries, the judge simply asked for the information about when the flights left, landed, and who was on them. And Rubio and Bukele have not been shy about the budding relationship between the U.S. and El Salvador. A month ago, they were both at Bukele's residence, and the State Department's public press release about their meeting notes said that he agreed to take custody of members of Tren de Aragua and MS-13 and, quote, criminal migrants from any country. Rubio and Bukele made an agreement publicly for...
How do Rogan and Dave Smith that are ostensibly libertarians cope with this? Like, people that I've spoken with, where I'll be like, hey, so he did A thing, that's pretty bad, right? Like, yeah, that's pretty bad. Hey, he did B thing, that's pretty bad, right? Yeah, B is bad. Yeah, C's bad. Yeah, D's bad. Yeah, E's bad. Yeah, F's bad. Yeah, F's, yeah, G. Yeah. And then it's like, okay, so what do you think? It's like, I don't know, man. I still think I'd go with him over Kamala because of the problems with woke. And it's like, okay, what? Like, what did you think was going to happen? Did you think A was going to happen? Well, no. Did you think B was going to happen? Probably not. C, D, E, F, G? No, I guess this didn't happen. what the fuck are we talking about right now? Like, you agree with me on every underlying point from A to Z that all these bad things are happening, right? Yeah. But you seem to have thought that all these other things were going to happen. They didn't happen under Biden, right? Yeah. I don't know, bro. I don't know how there's not like intense discomfort felt from those people when we have those conversations. I don't know.
For El Salvador taking
like listening to Dave Smith on that one Pierce episode say 2020 was the worst year in U.S. history for freedom of speech. And I was like, do you know who was president then? Or the one guy that I was arguing with where he's like, yeah, there are certain things. Was this the lawyer guy, one of the lawyer guys, who was like, I'd be really worried about them doing something about like bringing affirmative action back or something. It's like, didn't that go away under Biden? It's like, yeah, he didn't do anything to bring it back, right? No. What the fuck are we talking about right now then? Hello? Like,
incarcerated Americans, quote, and in an extraordinary gesture never before extended by any country, President Bukele offered to house in his jails dangerous American criminals, including U.S. citizens and legal residents. And of course, Bukele and Rubio tweeted about this affair while it was happening in real time. The government even released footage of masked men shaving the detainees' heads, then whisking the detainees out of prison and onto planes. The deportees did not arrive in El Salvador under the cover of darkness. The media was present, and when the planes landed, the governments of the two countries celebrated. The Trump administration literally made a deportation hype video. But Judge Boasberg gave the Trump administration another 24 hours to file the government's response. The judge noted that, quote, the government's motion is the first time it has suggested that disclosing the information requested by the court could amount to the release of state secrets. To date, in fact, the government has made no claim that the information at issue is even classified. The essence of the judge's order is that he wants to give the government another chance to decide if they really want to invoke the state secrets or other privilege, and he also may be appeal-proofing all of his decisions. We'll see. And fair or not, government litigants usually get multiple chances to comply with court orders. But still, for the rule of law to hold up, at some point, judges are going to have to get serious about contempt and other measures. In the meantime, President Trump said that Judge Boasberg should be impeached.
Yes! Can that be the central point of the video? We have to do something about contempt instead of threatening it over and over and over again. We're so far over the line.
For the rule of law to hold up, at some point, judges are going to have to get serious about contempt and other measures. In the meantime, President Trump said that Judge Boasberg should be impeached. This triggered a response from Chief Justice John Roberts, who said, quote, for more than 2 centuries, it has been established that impeachment is not an appropriate response to disagreement concerning judicial decision. The normal appellate process exists for that purpose. Notwithstanding, it is extraordinary for the sitting Chief Justice of the Supreme Court to weigh in on statements made about the judiciary in basically real time. But in a notice signed by Attorney General Pam Bondi, the Justice Department said it would not answer further questions on the flights. Quote, the government maintains that there is no justification to order the provision of additional information, and that doing so would be inappropriate because even accepting plaintiffs' account of the facts, there was no violation of the court's written order since relevant flights left U.S. airspace, and so their occupants were removed before the order issued, and the court's earlier oral statements were not independently enforceable as injunctions. Additionally, Robert Cerna, acting Field Office Director for Enforcement and Removal Operations at U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, stated in a signed court declaration that the immigrants on a third deportation flight following Saturday's restraining order were not removed under the Alien Enemies Act, but under Title VIII, a separate final removal authority. Now, how this could be legally possible is charitably unclear. He said, quote, to avoid any doubt, no one on any flight departing the United States after 7:25 p.m. EDT on March 15, 2025 was removed solely on the basis of the proclamation at issue. You'll recall that Judge Boasberg issued his temporary restraining order at 6:48 p.m. Eastern, while court records show that one deportation flight landed in Honduras at 7:36 p.m. and another in El Salvador at 8:02 p.m. Cerna also clarified that although President Trump signed the proclamation invoking the wartime law on Friday, ICE understood it to take effect only after the White House published it Saturday afternoon. He added that approximately 258 additional immigrants fall within the proclamation's scope, with 54 of them already in detention. And not surprisingly, the Trump administration has already appealed the temporary restraining order to the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals, which normally isn't a thing you can do. We've talked about that before. But written brief-
like, what world are we in where we're appealing TROs like over and over and over again? Bro, what are we doing right now? Hello? How many TROs are going to go? How many TRO appeals, which is already a really fucking bizarre thing, are going to go to like the fucking Supreme Court, which is like, how many TROs in the history of all of the government have even gone to the Supreme Court? Like, how has this ever happened before? It's so stupid. These judges are all so fucking weak.
Has already appealed the temporary restraining order to the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals, which normally isn't a thing you can do. We've talked about that before. But written briefings are due on Wednesday, and the panel's not great for the plaintiffs. It includes Justin Walker, who is about as much of a Trump ideologue as they come. But the administration may be relying on the optics and assuming that people are not going to want to go to bat for putative gang members and terrorists. Now, these are unprecedented times. But taking a moment to increase your online privacy is one way to bring greater peace of mind.
How can we do that?
Luckily, there are people out there who can help, and that's why we recommend signing up for today's sponsor, Incogni. Because the amount of personal and private data that circulates out there is truly horrifying. Incogni removes your personal data from online data brokers by reaching out directly and forcing them to take your personal info down.
Thank you.
If those data brokers resist, Incogni will take care of that too, because Incogni fights back. And right now you can use my link in the description or the code LegalEagle for an exclusive 60% off discount. Now, data brokers are the reason why in the US you can search your name and find a bunch of websites that will give anyone your home address, phone number, and extensive history. It's shocking just how easy it is to find all this information. And it also might be why you're getting so many spam calls lately, or even how someone might steal your identity.
This won't stop
but Incogni is a great way to take back control.
Until a judge grows the balls to issue an arrest warrant. This bullshit run around games. What I said on anything else last night. The thing that I wonder is if the judge is worried that a judge issuing a bench warrant for, first of all, who would it be for? Would it be for the attorney general, or would it just be for, like, who would be held in contempt here? Because the attorneys representing the government, would they be the ones held in contempt, or would it go up to the The AG or WG, I don't even know. Number one, and then number two, they might be worried that, well, that wouldn't be an issue for them. They would know who to hold them. But I think the worry might be that if they issue this bench warrant, I keep saying we're up to the point where who knows, like maybe it's civil war. But like you're up to a point where who knows, maybe it's civil war. You have the U.S. Marshals now that have an order to follow saying you need to go and arrest somebody from the Department of Justice. You have to go and arrest somebody from the DOJ. And then at that point, who knows what happens? Technically, the U.S. Marshals are part of the DOJ, but federal courts can issue warrants without the Attorney General issuing them if it's a bench warrant, if it's for being held in contempt. But then does the DOJ surrender somebody to a U.S. Marshal for arrest and for detainment? Does the DOJ give a contradictory order to the U.S. Marshals? And then you find out, well, are the U.S. Marshals going to follow the order of the judges that they're supposed to for these warrants? Or are they going to follow the Attorney General who's going to tell them to stand down? Does the military get involved? Does the FBI or any domestic federal agent get involved? Or like, who the fuck knows? Do they just lock the doors and hope that the marshals go away and bring out Doge to defend? I don't know. Like, yeah, it's just so wild. But I feel like issuing an arrest warrant would get us another. Keep saying that'll be the point, but who knows? Maybe it's just one more step closer because there's some other bullshit process that can happen. But it's one more step closer at the very least to figuring out, like, well, what is actually going to fucking happen? What are we actually doing here?
Control of your data.
Watch the rest of his ad. Fuck you.
Increase your online privacy, and cut down on those annoying scam calls and emails that used to flood my voicemail inbox. Now, I've been using Incognito for years. In that time, you can see I've been on hundreds of lists, some of which had a high sensitivity score, meaning the broker had tons of sensitive data on me.
Wow.
Luckily, Incognito has completed hundreds of takedowns for me over the years and is processing dozens of others. If I were to try this myself, it would take hundreds of hours. So thank you, Incognito, for saving me hundreds of hours and adding me to over 40 suppression lists. And Incognito will continue to conduct ongoing removals because even if the broker removes your data once, they can always collect it again. So Incognito makes sure that your personal information stays off the market for good. So if online...
Wouldn't Trump just issue a pardon for whoever it was issued a warrant? You're in such uncharted territories, bro. Who the fuck knows? Like, I mean, like, technically, could he? Maybe. Like, what if that happened? What if Trump did preemptively pardon? The bench warrants are issued, the U.S. Marshals show up, and then Trump says, I'm actually going to preemptively pardon everybody in the DOJ from any type of contempt charge. Then, who knows? Like, it's all so goofy. You can't pardon before a crime has happened? Of course you can. What do you think? Didn't Biden do that, technically? Or he could just issue the pardons live. Trump could literally be... It's like Death Note. You, like, follow somebody around with a book, except it's like Save Note. And he's just, like, following them around with his Twitter account or whatever executive order or pardon thing he needs to sign, waiting for somebody to get arrested. And he quickly writes it down. Oh, pardon that guy. Oh, pardon that guy. Pardon that guy. This was a good meme. Oh, you want a Kia swastika on my car? Ooh, she brings out the Glock. Lady, I've been on the internet for 20 years. I'd assure you I can draw a swastika much faster than you can draw that firearm. The White House... Oh, wait. As he was leaving the White House just now, President Trump said he didn't sign the Alien Enemies Act himself. I don't know when it was signed because I didn't sign it. Other people handle it. But Marco Rubio has done a great job, and he wanted them out, and we go along with that. But the proclamation is listed as a presidential action on the White House website and reads, by the President of the United States of America. auto pen? What's going on here? The White House now says President Trump was obviously referring to the original Alien Enemies Act that was signed back in 1798. What? Like that's any better? What? So laws are only valid if Trump signed them? The recent executive order was personally signed by President Trump invoking the Alien Enemies Act that designated Tren de Aragua as a foreign terrorist organization in order to apprehend and deport these heinous criminals.
You know, if somebody goes out and robs a 9/11, you got 9/11s here? All right.
Oh, no.
Somebody goes out and robs a local store.
Was he in New York City? If so, it would kind of work. They had a 9/11. Well, everybody has 9/11s, technically, right? Those dates exist.
Thank you. Michael, did you vote for Donald Trump?
Of course I did, Parker.
Okay, Cameron, thank you so much for the Galaxy. Thank you so much. So, why did you vote for Donald Trump?
Why? Because the price of eggs are down, a barrel of oil's down.
Okay.
Let's talk about your boy Harry.
Wait, Michael,
no.
Michael. Before we talk about like the eggs
Parker,
prices, hold up,
Parker.
Michael.
Oh, no.
I'm actually gonna kick you. Okay.
Oh, no.
Yeah, we can talk about eggs, right? But I'm not. Yeah, you're gonna make me crash out, Michael. I promise you, you'll make me crash out. About advice. Okay. Yo, what's up? How old are you?
I'm 52.
Did you vote for Donald Trump?
I did. I was just curious. Who has the bigger spreadsheet of women that you guys?
Jesus. When he does these streams, these aren't on TikTok, right? Are these on, does he stream on YouTube or Twitch or what? These are on both TikTok and YouTube? Oh. Jesus Christ. A Susan Crawford supporter was caught on a Ring doorbell, smoking, cursing, and looking for a deceased voter in Wisconsin. She said, "Is she voting for the nice lady or the devil? Is this really the best Democrats have to offer? I hope this goes viral."
Oh, shit. My apologies. My apologies. I should have read your sign better. My bad.
We can't answer the door right now, but if you'd like to leave a message, you can do it now.
No, she no longer lives here.
Okay, let me put this all back on here then. Eileen?
Oh, she's deceased.
Oh, man. Desiree?
She's here.
Or... Oh, I'm just supposed to be asking 2 questions if you're going to vote.
Are you going to vote? Yeah, they're doing early voting.
Okay, awesome. And she voting for the nice lady or the devil?
Oh, she doesn't want to share their information.
Okay, that's beautiful. I'm going to put it on the side. Thank you, ladies. I appreciate you. Saving my job.
Okay. Wow. It's horrible. Fuck, do I have time for this? Maybe, we'll see.
There's some kind of
Posted 1 hour ago. Oh no.
Tesla all hands meeting live right now. What is this? This is like an emergency, our stocks tanking kind of thing. This is an emergency, please stop rioting at our stores type thing. I think Tesla should pivot to clean coal.
every truck that we...
I think every time you turn
True.
on your Tesla, you have to toss a lump of coal in the back, and it burns off that. I think that'd be fire. All right, Elon.
We're going to go through just a list of the incredible achievements of the Tesla team. We've now produced over 7 million vehicles. The way things are tracking right now, we will actually have made over 10 million vehicles.
Dude, look at this
9 minutes
So we're past
ago.
the 10 million vehicle cumulative. That's a lot of cars, man. That's a lot of cars. So... And you know, there are times when there are rocky moments. First of all, as always, we care a lot about safety, so the safety of our cars and the safety of people within the factory. So you can see that our work-related injuries have declined over time. So thank you for
400, 500,000?
It's a collaborative effort. So
Wait, I'm sorry, what?
Is that true? Jesus. Wait, for how many cars? Wait, how many cars has Tesla made? Are there like 10 people getting injured per car? Wait, what? Wait, this has to be cumulative, right? Like it's
safety. But what I'm here to tell you is that that will indeed be the case. That the future we're headed for is one where you can literally just have anything you want.
Dude.
Like, if there's a good or service you want, you'll be able to have it, and ultimately everyone in the world will be able to have anything they want.
Dude, we used to have Steve Jobs as the big tech guy. We used to have, you heard his speeches, they're good. He was bad to his daughter too, but at least he had a good speech.
Like your own personal robot buddy that is a great friend, but also takes care of your house. We'll clean your house, we'll mow the lawn, we'll walk the dog, we'll teach your kids, we'll babysit.
That's your dream future? This is your perfect dream future.
With no limit. I think that's probably the best future. Again, what other future would you want? I think that's and also space travel.
Oh, man.
This guy gives presentations like the kid that forgot his homework. This guy gives presentations like a kid I know at ASU who forgot his homework. Just improvs it.
Is take the combination of things that we're making with Optimus and AI compute will achieve an age of abundance for all.
Base.
Like actually.
I'm not kidding. You could give me 45 minutes of prep. I could do. I'm not kidding. I could do 10 times better than this. And I'm not bragging on myself. This is like such a lot. I could do this speech better. This is crazy.
So overall, it's good. If you read the news, it feels like Armageddon. So it's like I can't walk past the TV without seeing a Tesla on fire. I'm like, what's going on? Some people, it's like, listen, I understand if you don't want to buy our product, but you don't have to burn it down. That's a bit unreasonable, Like, like this is psycho.
Are you okay, bro? Oh no.
So being psycho. Okay.
What is this? Are we doing stand up now? What's?
That's all he's gonna say on it.
And let's not forget also.
Is that it?
Model
Okay.
3, last year. So
pretty wacky out there, guys, right?
Model 3, it's a great car. Actually.
You're talking to your own employees.
So
what's crazy is like all these people he's talking to have worked very hard and they're very talented to make products.
Being bulletproof and all.
And the part you glossed over about people burning Teslas and not buying them because of him. It's only him.
Yeah.
He's the one making it hard to sell their cars.
So if you have a car that's a robot car that can drive autonomously, it can now be used potentially for 80, maybe 100 hours.
Okay, so there's faster depreciation
so you
wear
can
and
have
tear.
a car that has 10 times the usefulness of a non-autonomous car.
So the repair costs go up.
It's the same. In fact,
it costs the same, but the repair costs go up. So the extra value you're getting
is just.
Dude, ask an Uber driver who drives 10x the time. If
suddenly become like
the cost goes up 10x, and the repair cost goes up 10x.
There's never been something where a software update increased the value of a gigantic asset base by a factor of like 500 to 1,000%. So it's very different.
Oh man, bro, it's coming. Oh, no copium, no copium, no copium, no copium, no copium.
For like,
I would say the App Store to iPhones.
Those that look in the rearview mirror. It's so profound, and there's no comparison with anything in the past that they just can't. It does not compute, but it will compute in the future. And some people like Kathy Wood at ARK Invest do see the future. So what I'm saying is hang on to your stock. So,
please, please.
Do not sell. Do not
yeah, please
sell.
don't sell.
By the way, Kathy Wood, notoriously bad investor.
It's really
notoriously bad. Dude, he just gave away the whole reason for this meeting, dude.
And always encourage
it's just like
it's to beg
worried
people.
about the stock.
Not merely that like.
This whole thing is like, hey, reasure you about the stock. This does remind me of the Roaring Kitty YouTube live stream. It doesn't feel practiced enough. It doesn't feel planned enough. It feels too rushed for something this important. It's a bad sign. Like if you can't practice.
Yeah. So congrats to the Supercharged team on expanding network. Do great work there. So the demand for stationary battery storage is gigantic, and I think that is actually only going to increase dramatically over time. My prediction is long term, a majority of power on Earth. In fact, eventually,
it's going to be
like
green
90%
energy
or more of all power on Earth will be solar panels with batteries. That's my prediction.
Isn't it crazy that your administration fucking hates green energy so much, though, and you have had like zero fucking input or sway in Donald Trump's feelings about that? Like, hello?
My predictions have pretty good track record.
No, they don't.
Why would he say that?
Yeah.
That must have been like self-effacing or whatever, right? He was like memeing when he said that, right?
on. Is he waiting for applause? Is he like waiting for?
If you have thousands of Powerwalls in a neighborhood.
Dude,
Bro, he's working on his set. He's trying to get his hour for Netflix.
Employees aren't applauding. Dude, Steve Jobs could take the same material and double his stock tonight. Steve Jobs with his same presentation, but this is going to do nothing. Steve Jobs could make this sound so fun.
The most efficient. It's not that Tesla Full Self-Driving will be equal to humans in safety. It will be ultimately 10 times safer than a human.
Yeah, you said that in 2014.
It doesn't, you know.
And 15, and 16, and 17. The same line. He said he'd be better than a human.
I know no one in this audience would ever text while driving. That'd be crazy. But you know, it does happen.
He's bombing up there. He's bombing up there.
Driving, let's say you're driving 10, 12 hours a week or more, it gives you back 10 to 12 hours of your life, which is extremely cool.
That would be cool.
Self-driving is cool.
That would be, yeah. You don't have to convince us, bro.
Because you've mentioned it before. It's just other people are ahead of you now.
Optimus will be the biggest product of all time by far. Nothing will even be close. It'll be, I think it'll be 10 times bigger than the next biggest product ever made.
You haven't sold
like that level.
You haven't sold one yet. No, but don't. That's such a please clap moment. That's what you told them that your future of the company they work at relies on? Based on what? It's going to make a bajillion infinity dollars. Oh, questions.
If you've seen the design of the Cybercab line, it doesn't look like a normal car manufacturer.
You know, if he really wanted to boost the value of Tesla as a car company and make his employees feel better, he should just start giving out SpaceX stock to the employees and to people that buy cars. Have to talk to my other company, SpaceX, that's not a flaming pile of shit at the moment and has a marginally brighter future than Tesla, because at least there's a product there that isn't being outcompeted yet. Now, who knows where the future of SpaceX will actually be with Starlink and everything else being, you know, what the fuck, but...
line. It looks like a really high-speed consumer electronics line. It's in fact, the line will move so fast that that actually people can't even get close to it. Like that's, you know, I think it'll be able to produce a car.
Dude, I love telling our employees that we're not going to need humans for these.
Imagine a car coming off the
you guys are all watching this and just buying Tesla shares hand over fist, right?
Just make that real big.
Like everything he's saying, you're like, fuck, I gotta buy, just smashing the buy button.
True.
This inspires so much confidence.
Hi, Elon. I've been with Tesla for the last 8 years.
Cool.
It has been the most exhilarating 8 years of my career, and truly want to thank you for your leadership. I also have two.
Thank you for your contribution.
Thank you. Thank you for your leadership. I also have 2 little girls who spend their weekends cruising around in their very awesome Cybertruck. I'd love to know when we can add Optimus to the family.
Well, not anymore. They sent those back, right? But they'll get them back soon, hopefully.
This is a paid question.
We knew.
I guess they're all paid questions.
I'll say like we're succeeding if we get to half of the 10,000. No, but even 5,000 robots, that's the size of a Roman legion, FI, which is like a little scary thought, like a whole legion of robots. I'd be like, whoa. But I think we'll literally build a legion, or at least one legion of robots.
Stop calling them legions. Stop calling them legions.
Count
legions next year. And I'm hopefully ready for Optimus to be used outside of Tesla-controlled environment, or maybe around the middle of next year, second half of next year sometime.
Doubt.
Half of next year.
I press X. I doubt.
What advice would you give a young person like getting into the stock market? Like,
stock advice. Wow.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
as I think people can perhaps.
Fuck me. I just noticed how similar I feel like they kind of are in temperament, a little bit in interest. Imagine dual streams with fucking Atriac and Wreckful. I feel like that would have been super base. It would have been really interesting listening to these guys talk about like market shit and everything back and forth.
Be used outside of Tesla-controlled environment, or maybe around the middle of next year, second half of next year sometime.
Doubt.
Half of next year.
I press X. I doubt.
What advice would you give a young person like getting into the stock market? Like,
stock advice. Wow.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
as I think people can perhaps tell, it's going to sound very straightforward, but
just buy,
you want to really
buy stocks.
Buy stock in companies where you think the products that company makes will be better in the future. Is that company going to make more
better in the future? Not now, okay? Don't invest in things that are good now. Invest in things that you think will become good in some hypothetical timeline, at some point in the future, okay? That's where your money needs to be going. Please, please, God, please don't sell the stock, guys. Please, God.
Better products? Or, like, do you love the products that the company makes, and are they going to keep doing that? And like, I think Tesla, as I've just gone through, Tesla has a track record of having made many great products, and we're going to make many more future great products.
Bro, stop
extremely rare.
pumping Tesla stock!
I think long-term, with Optimus and self-driving, Tesla will probably be the most valuable company in the world. But there are also other companies out there that make great products and services. So I think that's the way you want to look at it.
This is like borderline illegal. You actually can't be pumping like this. This is crazy.
So if
the kid was like, what was advice to a young person getting into the stock market?
The stock, and if Tesla stock goes up and it goes down, but actually it's still the same company. It's just people's perception of the future. I don't know, I guess it's just very emotional, you know, so. But for me,
you're a sack of shit sometimes, bro.
How things will be from.
You know the sales are down. You know it's not, they're not just off their meds, dude. The sales are down.
The future of Tesla is incredibly bright.
Whew. Wow, inspirational. Well, I'm sold. I'm punting all my money in Tesla stock right now. Dude, I can't hear a word. I can't hear a word.
Say, will the robot take your job or what? That's a fair question. What we'll find with robots is that
They'll help you.
There'll be a ratio of people to robots. You know, you'll have like basically, I don't know, your flock or your little group of robots that you take care of and you tell them what to do. And yeah, you're promoted to manager.
That's your answer to an employee scared of losing their job to automation?
Is that
Remember, none of these people around Trump, I don't know what Trump did to everybody in the media, you know, people that are around him, they can't answer your questions with substance anymore. Like, there's just no substance behind anything. It's just the most unbelievable, you know, your 20-word vocabulary, same type of empty, fills the air with nothing of substance being said, responses to everything.
Everyone here will have a fleet of robots they're personally managing?
Yes, sir. My name is Aaron Armstrong.
Okay, we can hear the
it's
question.
not every day that you get to be in the presence of somebody that's accumulated so much wealth and success. So I just wanted to take this opportunity to ask for any wisdoms or secrets that you may have to offer about this game of life that we're all trying to play.
Sure.
Glaze.
I mean, I try to say everything that I know. Although admittedly, sometimes I'm, you know, like I posted on X. I guess should I ask the AI to look through all of my X posts and
it would kill itself.
pick out the ones that are really good.
The AI would
I try to say any,
self-destruct.
you know, good ideas that I have. You know, I think it's good to read, especially autobiographies. Where like,
If you're not worth $400 billion because you didn't read
God, this is another thing too. And Elon did this when he was on stage with that one guy, and somebody asked him, "What's your mind like? Like, what are the inner workings of your mind?" Which is an interesting question to ask somebody with his level of success. And his answers always suck. Like, I feel like it's almost like Kamala Harris, except worse, where he's not answering sincerely. He's not giving a sincere answer to the question. He's like, what would the smartest person in the world say? If you ask the smartest person in the world, how would they answer that question? That's what I need to do. That's how I need to answer the question. It's like, bro, just.
That I have. You know, I think it's good to read, especially, but also takes care of.
Oh my God, I just fucking.
Time?
Doubt. Doubt.
You know, you'll have like basically, I don't know, your flock or your little group of. Sure.
Glaze.
I'm manager.
That's your answer to an employee scared of losing.
Aaron Armstrong.
Oh, good. We can hear the
it's
question.
not every day that you get to be in the presence of somebody that's accumulated so much wealth and success. So I just wanted to take this opportunity to ask for any wisdoms or secrets that you may have to offer about this game of life that we're all trying to play.
Sure.
Glaze.
I mean, I try to say everything that I know. Although admittedly, sometimes I'm, you know, like I posted on X. I guess should I ask the AI to look through all of my X posts and
it would kill itself.
pick out the ones that are really good.
The AI
I
would
try to say any,
self-destruct.
you know, good ideas that I have. You know, I think it's good to read, especially autobiographies. Where like,
If you're not worth $400 billion because you didn't read enough
wrote the
autobiographies,
book themselves.
that's the trick.
That'll give you a lot of ideas. So podcasts and audiobooks, especially at bedtime, or I find are great.
That's what. Half people.
What is it? What? Podcasts or audiobooks at bedtime. The richest man in the world. The guide to success. Podcasts and audiobooks at bedtime. Thank God. Yes.
Chat have that same media diet. It's not exactly like it's the great. You have fucking ADHD and a Twitter addiction. It's not your brain is so fucking advanced. You should be reading bedtime stories to one of your 14 children.
And it's South Texas. And do we proceed?
Well, if he read bedtime stories to one of his 14 children, that would only be one kid getting a bedtime story. But if he's tweeting, all of his kids can read his tweets. So technically, Atriarch is going to take a pretty big L here. So
Because of making a product that helps how we spend money. Well, I think the AI is going to help us spend money better.
Oh, better.
It's kind of amazing, you know, what AI can do these days. I don't know if anyone here has used Grok, but it's pretty cool. Grok voice can be
No
really
cheers?
pretty great too. I should try Grok Unhinged. It's like, it's guaranteed to be entertaining at a party. I 1000% promise you if you try Grok voice
Grok, not a
Unhinged at
Tesla
party,
produby the way.
This will be a very,
Grok
this
is
will be
not
big
a
hit.
Tesla product. This is a
So-
different.
Oh, because it's owned by his other company, the AIX company or whatever, or XAI company. Oof.
Pump.
But you can also ask it any questions. You know,
This is
life
the
advice,
first time he
things
seems actually happy
or anything,
presenting, by the
you
way.
can ask, like, you can ask it if a
Oh, no.
It's
This is the first product he's got some passion about.
It's getting better.
This feels cooked,
Yeah,
man.
there's gonna be a lot of robots. So
This feels cooked.
I mean, ultimately, I think we'll be making tens of millions of robots a year, type of thing. It's like serious volume.
Bro, make one
It's wild.
and
Make
have
a
someone
car-
see if
make
it's actually
cars!
useful before you
All right, well,
promise
that's
hundreds of millions.
Okay.
Make sure it's actually useful, has a reasonable price point, people will buy it, has a use case in everyone's daily life before you promise
About
hundreds of
sustainability.
millions of sales. It's
Abundance, yes.
you're just saying things.
Well, I think if you say what's the best future you can think of? I think a future of sustainable abundance plus space travel. That's pretty great. Yeah, you know, if you want to go cybernetic and I don't know, maybe have like super intelligence and be able to see, you know, in different wavelengths. Human ability.
This is the friend at the party who just smoked weed talking about the future. Spitballing, just
Yeah.
a mix of different sci-fi you've seen and different.
Yep.
Like, that's exactly what it sounds like. I got friends that can talk just like this on a couch.
Yep.
It's almost like we're in an alien Netflix series that's trying to have the highest possible ratings. You know, it doesn't mean it's always good. Because to your point, if you wouldn't really want to watch a show where things are great and stay great. I'm like, oh, that's boring. You want to watch a show where there's like a narrative arc. Where
You're in
things
the
go up and down, they
government!
go back up again.
You're in the government!
And you know exactly what's going to happen next. So we're just going to keep the ratings up so we don't get canceled. All right, thank you guys.
Oh, good one to end on. That's
Holy
crazy.
shit.
He's detached from his own employees, let alone a regular human. Well, I'm sure, you know what? I eat my words. You know, I made a presentation recently. I don't know if you've heard about it. Did decently well on YouTube, no big deal. Where I made the case that I think Tesla as a stock, as an investment, is not a very good one. Based on the outlooks for the future of the company. But after that, my mind has changed. This stock's going to 10,000. It's going to be bigger than Amazon, Meta, Google combined. That convinced me, bro. He's got it figured out. What a natural leader, speaker, and marketer.
True.
To lead a really compelling product plan.
Yes.
Of self-driving that you're behind on, and robots that I don't think are anywhere near production or product market fit. Elon Musk first trillion ever. God willing, baby. Selling my house so I can buy 10x leverage calls on Tesla. Good call. I think that's what he told that guy in the presentation who asked about his kid getting in the stock market. And he said, well, you should invest in a great company like Tesla. He asked the richest man in the world for his son's advice on getting into the stock market, and he told him to invest in his own company. He pumped his own bags in that question. That is dedication.
At least he didn't say, oh no, because, wait, SpaceX or none of that shit is publicly traded, is it? Damn, didn't even go over the Cybertruck recall. Okay. Well. I love you guys. Be careful. Ray-Ban, cappuccino, 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 cappuccino. Oh, wait. If I were to debate Andrew Wilson on a thing, what would I debate him on right now? I have somebody offering to set up a debate. Okay. All right. Have fun. Be careful. Don't die. I love you all so much. Bye.